Now, let's go ahead and start writing things as we read this word problem. So we notice that the property tax is going to decrease as the distance increases. Okay, got it. The greatest property taxes are 4.5%. Now you might be thinking, well, shouldn't I change it to a decimal? And normally that is the case. And if I were doing so, I would move the decimal 2 to the left because a percent really means per hundred, and dividing by 100 moves the decimal 2 to the left. However, because I have percent here, here, and even really here, as long as I look at that as essentially they're all in the same units, they kind of all cancel out. So let's continue here and notice that it says for every 10 miles from the school, the property tax decreases by 0.5 percentage points. Now keep in mind that was a decrease of 0.5 percentage points per 10 miles from the school. Now, in case you are unsure, well, how do I know whether the 0.5 goes on top or the 10? Let's look at this as independent versus dependent. So the x-axis is always the independent axis, and the y is always called the dependent axis. So think about what depends on what. Well, we saw here that the taxes depend on the distance from the local elementary school. So in other words, distance is independent, tax is dependent, and slope is change in y, so like a rise, over change in x, so run. So that's why we have the 0.5 over the 10. And they're saying that the result is that this property tax is 3%. And as a result, we're trying to figure out what that distance is. So notice it's 0.5% per 10 miles. And then we essentially have that distance as like the slope in this slope intercept form. And absolutely, I could do this by hand. However, let's say you came up with this equation and you put it on your paper, your scrap paper. I would actually just go into Desmos at this point and remove any other previous equations you have there. And then we're just going to type this in. I'm going to use, instead of x, I'm going to put, actually instead of d, I'm going to put x. And then we will see what our solution is. So let's go ahead and zoom out a bit. And we can see that x is equal to 30, making the correct answer C.